So what do you do when a narcissist belittles you, puts you down, invalidates you, takes away your sense of affirmation? Belittlement. That is the first of 6 ways that narcissists express their rage, or we would call it meltdown. Now, it may not be explosive rage, it may not be shouting and screaming, but it's a meltdown. It's rage nonetheless. But what do? This is the first of 6 things we've got. 6 ways they express their rage. You need to be aware of these, and let me know in the comment section if you've actually experienced these. And I got to tell you, I've done some of these things myself. I don't think I'm a narcissist, but I do have narcissistic traits, and so I can see some of these things even in myself. Then we're going to tie them all together when we get to the very end. The 6 things, and the first one is belittlement. Now, the question was, what do you do when a narcissist is belittling you? And here's what I suggest you do, is just take a moment and stop and think about the odds of you even being here. I looked this up on the internet, and I found an article on Business Insider, and it had some amazing statistics. If I don't forget, I'll put a link in the description section, but it said the chances of your parents meeting, 1 in 20,000. So just that one factor among many. The chances of you being here, 1 in 20,000. What are the odds? You know, if you could do that, you could win the lottery. Well, you did win the lottery. The fact that you are here, you beat 1 in 20,000 chances, but that's just the beginning. Because the same thing is true of both of your grandparents. The chances of them meeting, 1 in 20,000. So what's that? Another 40,000. So now we got 1 in 60,000. What about your great-grandparents and your great-great-grandparents? And you take that all the way back to Adam and Eve or whoever the original parents were. You follow your lineage all the way back, and what you will discover is it is a mathematical impossibility for you or I or anyone to be here. So when somebody belittles you, when a narcissist belittles you, invalidates you, just stop and think for a second. You're special. Not in the sense of a narcissist, but everybody is special, and the likelihood of us being here, we are all mathematical impossibilities. And, it goes on from there as I was reading this article. It said the chances of you being here, the chances of your parents meeting, number 1 in 20,000. The chances of them even staying together, 1 in 45,000, going all the way back to the original parents, whoever they were. That's the chances of you being here again. Just again, I keep hating to say it over and over again, but mathematically impossible. Now, as I was reading that article, I stopped and thought about a story my dad told before he passed away, obviously, about his experiences during World War II, and he was telling the story about being stationed at, I think it was Fort Benjamin in Indiana, and his supervisor, whoever that was, I don't know, sergeant, whatever, asked him to do a task that was unpleasant, but as a reward for that task, he would give him a pass. We could go off base and see, his friends, family, whatever, probably my mom. And so my dad did the task, and he got the pass, and he got a phone call. And whoever was on the other line was the supervisor of the supervisor. And again, I don't know military terms or what their, line of authority is, but this guy was upset because his regiment was supposed to ship out. Well, supposed to ship out, they were shipping out. And my dad literally missed the boat. Well, it turns out that regiment was nearly wiped out. And if my dad had been on the boat, if he hadn't gotten that pass, done that job, he would not have been here. I would not have been here. Because that was like 10 years before I was even born. And how many different How many different circumstances have been in their lives? Probably countless thousands, their lives speaking of my parents. The point is, when somebody belittles you, it doesn't matter if a narcissist you or whomever, stop and think, what are the chances of you being here? And it's mathematically impossible. There, I said it again. And I'm just waiting for the camera to catch up. It's gone kind of blurry on me, but it's mathematically impossible for you to be here, and so you are special. Remind yourself of that. You are special. So if you take all the factors together, there it goes in focus. They say that your chance of existing is 1 in 10 to the power of 2,685,000. That's a big number. How big is it? Well, by comparison, when we say, to the power of, we mean 10 times 10 is to the second power. 10 times 10 times 10 is to the third power. 10 times, and do that 2,685,000 times. That's what that is. How many atoms are there in the universe? Well, 10 to the 80th power. So that's 10 times 10 times 10 times 10. Do that 80 times. So the chances of you being here minimize the number of atoms in the universe. Why is somebody belittling you? Why would anybody belittle anybody? Because all of us, including you, are special. We are mathematical impossibilities. I think I said that 4 times now. All right. So number one, how do they melt down? How do they show their rage? They do it through belittling other people, because that reminds you of your flaws, real or imagined, probably exaggerated even if they're real. And that takes the frustration, the load off of the narcissist. Number 2 is, and this is kind of similar, but they accuse others. Now here we're talking about very specific failures. They stub their toe, and it's your fault because you left this thing in the way, and you may have had nothing to do with putting that thing in the way, and maybe that thing was supposed to be there, but it doesn't matter. You should have known to move it. It's your fault. Thing you notice about narcissists is they are never to blame. Well, they're ready to take credit if something goes right, but when something goes wrong, they have a meltdown. They go into this sometimes explosive rage, sometimes it's very passive. And number 3, kind of similar, is what I would call blame. Well, a lot of people call it blame shifting. And this is just a culmination of failures. Why is their life miserable? Why is their life a failure? And, there are some narcissists who are very successful in life, but the ones that I've met, basically, they're just bums, They can't deal with life, and they take it out on other people. And they blame shift. They didn't do it. The reason their life is a mess is because of everybody else. If other people would just treat them with the admiration that they deserve, they're entitled, right? Then they wouldn't have all these problems. Blame shifting. Number 4 is, this is like passive aggression, and that is they're uncooperative. I know, I've actually done this myself. You're upset, you're going to have this rage, but it's aggressive rage that is very passive, very quiet, keeping it inside, keeping it to yourself. They're just not going to cooperate. Doesn't matter because, they don't want someone else getting the credit. They don't want someone else being in charge. They don't want someone else telling them what to do, or whatever the circumstance happens to be. They express rage passively by just not cooperating. Sitting back hoping you fall on your face. And we're going to tie these together here in just a moment. Number 5 is they will live in what I call self-made universe, in which they see themselves as the king or queen of everybody. Because, they're smarter than everybody. They don't make mistakes, everybody else does. So they express their rage through their narcissism, through their arrogance, through their pomp, what do you call that, puppiness? I don't know, just make up a word. But they live out their rage. And what is their rage? What is the source of that rage? You know, every outcome has a cause. Every cause has an outcome. So what makes them do this? Why are they living in this self-made reality where they are the king and queen and their expression is the way they passively express their rage? Why do they do that? It's because I think maybe deep down inside they know their failures. And I always say deep down inside. I think maybe it's skin deep. It's because narcissists tend to be thin-skinned. But who knows? There are probably narcissists out there, some that I've never met, who actually believe they are the king and queen of the universe. I mean, they're just that delusional. And number 6, we would say they express their rage by being dominated by their emotions. I mean, they're just temperamental all the time, it seems. Maybe not all the time, maybe not during the love bombing stage, love bonding stage, but they tend to be temperamental. The world should respond to them always. Give you an example of this. I was in a big box store, kind of like Menards or Lowe's. This place is called Rural King. Maybe you have one in your area. As I was walking in the store, there was this huffy woman kind of barging in front of me. And she had on her, what I call the holiness uniform. The hair piled up on her head. She's wearing a skirt down to her ankles. She had that look about her. Didn't have the attitude about her, but she had the uniform about her. Whatever. There's nutty people everywhere. But it just so happens when it came time to check out, I got in line and she was in front of me. She was not a happy camper because there was a line and there was only one checkout open. So in front of me was her and another guy and somebody checking out. Finally, she got so upset, she just pushed her cart aside and she stomped out the door because she didn't want to wait. And I thought to myself how self-destructive that is. She didn't want to wait. All the time she spent driving to the store, shopping around the store, standing in line, now driving home or wherever she's going. All that time is wasted because she didn't want to wait maybe a few minutes. And as it turned out, it wasn't really that long. Right after she walked out the door, they opened another checkout counter. And some other woman rushed in front of me before I had a chance. But that's life. But the point is, some people are just temperamental. They're just dominated by their emotions. That's the way they are. That's the way they express rage. People who are narcissistic, not always, but I find that when they're wearing their mask, they can be very pleasant people. They can be just flat out likable. They can be very deceptive, and they are. I've fallen for this more times than I care to remember. A lot more times than I care to remember. But I've never met a narcissist who can keep up the act forever. The mask always wears thin. It slips. You can see through it. And once you see through it, all that niceness begins to disappear. They may engage in trying to be nice and trying not to be nice and then being nice again. Trying not to be nice, trauma bonding or trauma as I call it. But eventually, if you don't put up with that, they're going to disappear. The mask is going to come completely, totally off. And you're going to see the narcissist for the demonic personality they truly, genuinely are. So those are 6 ways that narcissists express their meltdowns. They express rage. It's not always shouting. It's not always screaming. It's not always stomping and spitting. Yeah, sometimes they do that, but not always. All right. So how do we tie all this together? What we do is we realize that this is my opinion. Hopefully you agree with it, but if not, that's fine. Every effect has a cause. I mentioned that earlier. Every effect has a cause. So the effect is they're having a meltdown, or they're having a temper tantrum, or they're raging passively maybe, but they're raging. And we need to ask ourselves, okay, that's the effect. Now, what is the cause? And the cause, in my opinion, based upon my 70-some years of observation of these people, And I've seen a lot of them, a couple of them more severe than others. But the thing I've noticed about all of these things is they live in an alternate reality. They live in that reality we mentioned before, in which they are the king or queen of the universe, and everybody is their subject. And they get angry when people don't do what they expect them to do. Real or imagined, again, stub their toe. It's because one of their subjects didn't move the item. Some people actually do that. Okay, I've done it a couple times where I blame somebody else and I should not have, so I know what I'm talking about from personal experience. There's a red dot in the lower right-hand corner. When you click on that and the bell that follows, then you join our family here on YouTube. You get notifications when we upload more videos, and then there's a rectangle, lower left-hand corner. Click on that. That's our video library. So you can keep on watching as long as you want, because we got, as they say in France, a beaucoup of videos. That means a lot. See you next time.